What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Hardison, and today we are going to show you how to center and set your steering endpoint adjustments. Let's get straight into it. So in the last video, we took my lovely Sanwa radio and we went over all of the basic upfront functions that you're gonna wanna make sure you set before you go out and hit the track. Now we've gone over what you want to look out for before you hit the track. Today, we're going to start off with showing you the first of those functions, which is going to be setting up our steering. So we are going to take my lovely buggy here and I'm going to reset everything. I'm gonna have everything in my radio just set back to the default neutrals. I'm gonna mess up my links a little bit and go through the full process with you of how to, again, get everything centered up and then get our endpoint set. So let's go ahead, show you the materials that I have out in front of me. We'll swing you guys around and we'll go ahead and jump straight into it. The materials you're gonna wanna have on hand are your radio, some batteries, a turnbuckle wrench, a wheel wrench, a pair of calipers, some wheels and tires, and then of course the vehicle that needed steering set up, all of which can be found at adrenalinrcracing.com. Alrighty, so I got us all set up here, and it is a bit of a awkward setup that I've got going, so you gotta bear with me a little bit. I'm gonna try and get this all knocked out, but I may have to do some editing magic here. So the first thing we're gonna go ahead and do is we're going to power on our radio, which I do have turned on, and then I'm going to turn on my car, which is then going to, of course, center our servo itself to whatever the default centering is. So what I'm not gonna show in this video is actually placing the servo horn on the car, but all you're gonna do is once the car is turned on, everything is set neutral, you'll drop your horn to where your steering rack is as centered as it possibly can be. So the first thing we're gonna go ahead and do before we even look at our links, the length of them, setting any of that at all, we're going to first center our steering rack. So the way that I do that is I take a look at this screw here and compare the distance from here to my top plate and the distance from here to my top plate. And the goal is that you want those gaps to be the same. That way you know the rack is centered. And then by having the rack centered, all of the other geometry up here with the rest of these links, in theory, will all be identical, matching, and it will be a square setup. So, taking a look at those, we are going to use our trim feature. I'll show you on the radio here. I know it's a glare, but we're going to mess with our steering trim. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my trim and I'm going to adjust it to where that gap, again, is equal from one side to the other. And as you're doing this, it'll be important to do some flicks of the wheel. That way, just in case anything is off for whatever reason, we get a true neutral point of what it comes back to. So that way, again, everything will be nice and square. So let me go ahead and get that set here. Looks like we are pretty close. Almost there. I think we're just about there at the center. So I don't know if you can see this in the video a whole lot. Again, I may have to do some moving around and some editing magic here. But the gap from here to here and the gap from here to here is effectively the same to the eyeballs look. What I will go ahead and do is I will pick you guys up and we'll see if we can get you a closer look at that. There we go. So you can see the gaps are just about the same on the left side and the right side, which means now we can start messing with our turnbuckles. So I'm gonna need you guys set back up on my lovely temporary tripod stand here, and then we'll continue on. So we got you guys set back up onto the tripod here. And now that we have our rack centered, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to set our turnbuckle lengths. Now, a lot of times what you'll do is you will set this with the wheels and tires on the car, which is why they are in the materials list. But for this demonstration, because I want you guys to be able to see everything that I'm working with here, I'm not going to be able to do that. The reason it's important to do that is because the tires will add some form of resistance to the car, and it will also give you a much better visual representation of truly what those toe points are set to. I personally don't have any sort of toe gauge at all, so this is a bit of an eyeball adjustment. But what you're going to do is you're going to set one side to where your toe is where you want it. I usually go for just a little bit of toe out. So I will set one side of my linkages. Then once I am happy with the way that toe is set up, I will measure this with my calipers, and then I will mirror it to this side. Again, going back to what I said earlier of making sure that geometrically we are totally square across the board here. So I'm going to go ahead and we will mess with this side here because it just happens to be the side closest to me. I will get it to basically where I want it to be, and then I will measure that and set it to the other side. So I'm going to go ahead, get that set up. I'm just going to speed up this video. That way you don't have to sit here and watch me for the next couple minutes, slowly adjusting it one way or the other. All right, so now that this side is set, we're gonna go ahead and just match it to the other side. So I've got my turnbuckles set equivalently on both my left side and my right side, so that way they're the exact same length. Now we can go ahead and set our endpoints. And the reason why, again, it is important to have the tires on the car to set your endpoints is because the tires are gonna rub on the ground and they are going to create some resistance. So in this case, because I wanna be able to show you guys what's going on the car itself, I've got my tires off and I'm gonna get it as close as I can. So we're gonna go ahead, go into the radio again here. We're going to go into our settings and we're going to go into our base. Now, on your radio, it is gonna be set to 100, just like mine. And what I like to do for good policy is I will go ahead and I will turn down my endpoint on both sides, just in case, because you never know if one side, after we've centered this guy, is going to throw one way too far or the other. So now we've got you guys focused on specifically our knuckle here, and on a C-up car, our caster block and our knuckle are going to be independent from one another. So you can use the edge of your caster block and your Ackerman, those guys hitting each other. That is going to kind of give you a little bit of a reference telling you whether you've gone to hit your full endpoint, whether you've gone too far, or if you're not there yet. Some cars will even have a screw in here, and that is what's gonna hit your Ackerman. That will tell you, again, where your endpoint sits. On a pillowball car, this entire unit is going to move together, so you aren't going to be able to use that reference, but you are going to use a trick that I'm going to show you as we get to the end of our adjustment here. So in this case, I don't have wheels and tires on. It is important, again, to have your wheels and tires on because there's going to be resistance on the ground, and then you're going to get a more true full throw endpoint. So we're going to go ahead and go full lock here, and we're going to adjust very slowly. That way we don't accidentally go too far. And you can see my knuckles moving this whole time. So we're going to go until that knuckle stops giving us any sort of movement. So you can see right about there is where we're going to stop movement. So now at this point, you are very close to full lock, but you're not there just yet. So we're going to go back to our full lock, and we're going to mess with our knuckle. And you can see we're going to have some play forward and backward. That means that we can actually go just a couple points more. So that way, when you're going around the turn, your steering will hold full lock and not have a bunch of this action effectively. So we're going to go to our full lock, and we're going to do this point very, very slowly, especially just move 1 point at a time. So that way we don't hurt our servo. So you can see we still got a little bit more there. We'll go to another point, just a teeny bit. So I think if we go one more point, we'll go neutral, full lock. And I would say that we are right there. A reference to note if you've gone too far is that when you go to full lock, you'll see the whole front end kind of pick back at itself. That is going to tell you you have too much endpoint. Another reference is this servo specifically isn't super loud, but there are some servos that scream all the time. And if you go full lock and it's this really obnoxious, high pitch, annoying sound, you're probably a bit too far. So you're gonna wanna back that off a little bit. Some cases, there are servos that are just gonna scream regardless of where it's set. So then that won't work. But in most cases, if it's just screaming like that, then you're probably gonna want to go ahead, back it off, and then restart with setting your endpoint. So now that we have concluded with our endpoint adjustment on our right side, you're gonna do the exact same process on the left side. More than likely, it is going to be two different values from one side to the other. And the reason for that is because our servo, unless it's at a perfect zero with everything, you didn't have to do any trim, then maybe it'll be the same side to side. But if you have to set any sort of trim at all, most likely it's not going to be the same from side to side. There'll be some sort of variation. And then of course, there's often the variation of, as you use the car and it gets worn out, there may be more slop one way or another. So that'll vary a little bit. But so you aren't going to want to just use the same measurement from one side to the other. You're going to want to set them independently. So with that being said, we now know how to get our servo nice and centered with our horn placed on it. We know how to get our rack nice and centered. We know how to set our turnbuckles to where they are the exact same on both sides. And we know how to set our endpoints. So with that being said, that is going to bring us to the conclusion of this video. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. We are going to continue working through these processes in the next few videos. If you have any requests for anything, definitely leave them in the comments below. Also, same thing for questions, leave those down below, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.